Welcome to the Our Readiness Lens podcast, where we're focused on numbers and driven by results. I'm your host, Sheri Radler, and each week we'll take a closer look at practical ways to get your business ready for what's next. From firm planning for the upcoming quarter to finding the right health insurance for your team. Whether you're a small or mid-sized business owner looking for advisory support or just want to better understand your numbers, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Okay, hi again. Welcome back to Our Readiness Lens. And today we're going to talk about something that business owners often think about, but it's so easy to push down the road and say we're going to deal with it later. And this is the topic of how and when do we exit our business. Truth of the matter is, most business owners talk about this as like something we're going to plan it. It's going to be the summer after I turn 70. But I've got Ann Napolitano in here today, and we're going to talk about why, in our experience, this is not necessarily so. So Ann is, she heads Ann Napolitano Consulting, and her firm heads up hospitality, restaurants, distilleries, a lot of that information, and I'm going to allow her to introduce her and her puppy to the conversation. So come on in, introduce yourself from Long Island, and tell us about your firm, and we'll start this conversation.
Thanks very much. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. My name's Ann Napolitano. My firm is based in New York on Long Island. I have a team of 10, and we handle accounting and advisory services for clients nationwide and specializing in food and beverage clients and nonprofits.
Perfect. And today's conversation that we're getting into is what we call business killers. Kind of like, as I said when we started this conversation, and if you've listened along with our podcast as all, we talk about business and this journey we're on as the chutes of ladders of business. Every single one of us got into this for a reason. We probably all have very different reasons. Maybe we just were proving to someone that we could do it. But we had a reason for doing it. And now as we go through this journey, we all have had opportunities that help level us up. We call them chutes. And things have happened in our life that really kick us back down those ladders, and we call them chutes and ladders as we play with this. But when we talk about our business, we often are approaching it that this is a journey we come into, we're going to live its life, and we're going to leave it on our plan. But in our experience, and you're already laughing because we've all heard it, we plan and the universe laughs. True?
Absolutely true. It never goes according to plan. Rarely. So, absolutely.
And if it goes according to plan, count those blessings by a lottery ticket because you're one in a million, right?
Exactly. I wouldn't count on it, and I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket for it to happen. Sometimes people just show up and offer you something for your business, or other times things happen in your life that changes your perspective or changes your direction.
You're totally right. And everything we talk about in our firm with our clients, with you and your firm and your client, we're always talking to our clients about being prepared, being ready. Hey, this deadline's coming up. This due date is here. This is what needs to happen in your business. So being ready for what we define as we call business killers is the conversation we're going to have today, because there's truly the idea that, guys, you can show up every single day working the plan and you can do it right. And same as you walk in one day and your spouse says, hey, guess what, honey, I decided I want a divorce after 50 years. You can really have it knocked out from under you just that quick. So we're going to talk to you today about what some of those risks are, what we have experienced, some of the stories we've seen, because believe us, we've seen some horror shows. And we're just going to talk to you about some of the ideas that we want to put in front of you and have you think about. And have you ever internalized and brought this to the table to your mindset? Okay. So when we talk small businesses, how many small businesses do we have in this country?
I don't know how many, but it's a big driver of the economy, isn't it?
According to the Small Business Association, we have over 30 million small businesses, but the critical factor of that, they employ over 60 million people. That's over 60 million households riding on the decisions that our business owners are making.
That's scary.
So when we think of
That's scary.
think about that. I mean, we're living our lives. And now, whether you work for a small business or you work for big corporate, the truth is there. We are living our lives in a bubble based on the good decisions the stewards of our companies are making. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's just true, big or little. Um, but when we do think about that, how many small businesses, how many privately owned businesses? You go to your community, you go to church, you go to a ball game. I mean, in a room of 100 people, 10 of them probably own that business.
Very, very true. And
10
frequently
of them.
they're the main driver of the business too, right?
Yeah. So they're the ones having to make the decisions on what happens every single day and what happens next. And then when we finally get them to grow up enough that they're not making all those decisions and they start delegating and have confidence in other people, what happens?
The business succeeds. It can grow. It can be ready for the next chapter. There's always risks, though. It can be based on the business owner, right? But it can be based on a lot of other factors that can impact them as far as their exit strategy is concerned.
So what what have you seen? I can tell you a story like we had in COVID. You know, we had a business owner, owned his business. He was the guy, had a great team. Everything was done. So truly, he did not need to be there on a day-to-day basis. But his was the name on everything. He signed all the checks. The loans were in his name. ADP only talked to him. So when this man got sick and passed away during COVID, there was that, I mean, who had the control of the organization? Who had the ability to talk to the bankers? Who had the ability to renegotiate? Because those were the type of things in this business owner's world that he had left that door open, that exposure, that yes, as long as he was there, his business ran. But he didn't have a succession plan. He didn't have a secondary signer. He didn't have a clear communicated plan with his banker and his team that if I get knocked out for a minute and I'm not here, this is how it gets run.
And I think that that's pretty normal, right, for a lot of business owners. We have a client and they're a current client of ours, and they drew up their own operating agreement with their partners. And there's no plan in there for succession, for him to leave. He's the majority owner. And when one of the minor partners passed away, there was nothing in the operating agreement that spelled out how it would be handled. And at that point, somebody had walked in the door and asked him to potentially buy the business. And now he had to deal with this person having died and what was going to happen to those shares. And that was only 2% of the company, but it held everything up.
Exactly. I mean, and that can be one of those things. I mean, we call it the 4Ds. I mean, there's a million different business owners, but divorce, death, disability, those are three of the big ones. I mean, all of these can trigger because that's important. As your accountants, Ann's team, our team, we're always talking to you about in your business. What's your bottom line? What's your budget? What's your variance? But some of these things that can kill you aren't something you wake up and are planning for, aren't something that is part of our day-to-day conversation, aren't something part of this. So it's stopping to take the step back and go, okay, well, let's look at this.
And knowing when to wisely spend money on things that are important and may not feel important at that moment when you're doing it. And you may be trying to save money, but this owner, he decided that using Google for his operating agreement was fine, right? And and it burned him, right? But it would have been worth it to spend a couple of $1,000s to have an attorney draw up a real partnership agreement, right? That took into consideration everything that could potentially happen, or at least a lot of things that could potentially happen. But the fact that this operating agreement didn't even have anything in there about the sale or transfer of the business or the retirement, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
No, I mean, just totally, an open idea. And that's the thing, LegalZoom and ChatGPT and the internet, they give us a lot of information, but they also can take us to a point of danger if we follow it, because, a partnership agreement is one of the most dangerous agreements that I, as an accountant and CPA, have to work through, because who has control, who owns what, basis and control. And, to your point, who owns it if somebody passes away? Who owns the profits? Who owns the losses? Who owns it? Do we, if we have a partner, did you immediately write a key man policy right behind it?
And that's great advice, right?
Shouldn't have
That's
one
great
without
advice.
the other.
That's great advice, right? But people don't listen to that. But that's something that you should consider, because, like you said, people don't think that anything is going to happen and that things are going to occur on their terms.
Okay, so what happens if someone passed away without a key man policy in a partnership? Walk us through that. Give us a story on that.
You could end up either being partners with family members, or you could then have to try to buy somebody out, buy your partner out, right? Or their family members out. And you may not have the resources to do that. So then you may end up being partners with the spouse of somebody that you were in, as a partner. And you may not want to do that. This story that I was telling you about, this person's sons are now partners with him in the business.
Yeah. So you never intended to go into business with your partner's spouse or your partner's kids, but because you didn't have a policy, your partner passes away, you can't buy out his shares out of the estate. So now all of a sudden, you're totally in bed with the family, and what if they don't want it? They have no interest. So now, instead of your partner being in there helping you run this business every day, you're instead just paying out part of your profits to his family. Well, you're bearing the weight of it.
Or you end up
this is just one of the ways.
Disagreeing with the new partners, the partner's spouse who wants to take it in a different direction than what you thought, right? And that could be really scary. It could be very scary.
Absolutely. Keeping it on the owner and partner risk, we're always talking to our clients about, one, we got to get our people out of the middle. If you're a business owner and we don't want you to be the spoke of the wheel, the hub of the wheel. We just want your entire organization to be like a spider web. Everything doesn't have to go through Ann. Everything doesn't need to go through business owner. Hey, feel free, go down the hall, talk to that department head directly, ask your question, Y'all figure it out. But when we talk about this, we want you as the owner to be out. But then it's like, we ask questions. We're talking to our year-end clients right now, having these conversations. And it's like, if something happened to you, does your spouse know who to call? Does your spouse know to call us? Does your spouse know to call your plant manager? Does your plant manager, have you had a conversation in your plant, in your facility, in your agency? If something happened to you, does your family know who your top 5 people are to call?
Most cases, no. I would say no. And a lot of that stems from owners not wanting to let go, right? They start the business as a solopreneur sometimes, or with one partner, and they're in charge, right? And then the business grows and they don't evolve with the business and change the way that they do things, because they think that they still need to be in control. And that works fine until something happens, and then it's not going to work.
And that's exactly why we're sitting here talking today, because if you're not aware of the fact that you put yourself at risk, We're talking to a business owners right now at year end. And one of the conversations I had with one recently was like, from the day you got that part time job up until about the age of 55, your job is saving money for retirement. I mean, like, that's your, however you want to go about it. At age 55, though, your job is to stop and kind of take that look forward and be like, what's the exit ramp? Because are we handing it down to the kids? Are we going to sell it? Am I working it to death? Are we going to do an ESOP and hand it down to the team? But all of those timelines take time, hence the word timeline. And that time isn't when you're like, hey, so and so called me this week and said, I'm buying businesses in your area. Are you interested in selling?
Mm-hmm.
Which legit, we got that call last week from one of our business owners because we had been talking about this. He's like, you put it out in the universe. I got a call this week. Someone's asking if I'm selling my business. And it's like, are you?
Are they ready?
You're 58 years old. What's the plan? Well, I don't know. I like going fishing.
But at
So
least
we
they
need to
have
come
you,
up with a
right?
plan.
At least they have you, and that their financials are in good shape, because that's obviously one of the first
Now, in
steps,
that plus, they're ahead, and I told them that.
right? Because
But in that one piece, you're ahead.
isn't that a
But
factor?
second, it's like, can you? What are they what are they offering? If it's only 2 years worth of your revenue, you could stay and work till 60. I mean, are you really dying to retire? But again, are you even thinking like what's next? And that was my question. Okay, you retire. What are you going to do? He's like, go fishing. And I was like, okay, that is not an answer. We need a better answer before we answer a phone call and go, well, thanks for calling. Yes, I think I will sell you my company just because you called me on a random Thursday afternoon.
Do you ever recommend business valuation firms for your clients?
We do recommend business valuations when we start talking that. A lot of times we're recommending to our clients that at a certain point we think you should be talking to a financial wealth advisor, that tax group. We're talking piece of the pie. We know your business, we know your practice, we know your agency. I don't know what you're inheriting from your parents. I don't know what your trusts for your kids are. We don't know those, all of the pie. So at a certain point, we're really wanting our people to talk about the pie.
Mm-hmm. And that's great advice. But again, they have a leg up because they have you, right? They're not coming.
But I mean, we also talk, so we're talking about owner risk. We also have people risks. Hey, we all have that one team member that, boy, they are our right hand. They are our person. What if they don't show up tomorrow? What if they get lured away? I mean, that's a risk. We
Business.
have a client right now that is not communicating his leadership plan effectively. He's telling us that, hey, I think I'm going to sell it to my plant manager one day now that I'm 72. We're talking to the plant manager who's, well, I don't know what he's going to do one day, but I guess I need to start keeping my eye out for a job before he sells the company out from under me. And it's like, do y'all not have a conversation? That they're at risk.
And what do you recommend? Did you talk to the business owner and see if he had actually spoken to the plant manager?
We definitely recommended that, it doesn't necessarily feel like y'all are on the same page here. Y'all need to have we recommend you have a conversation. Because you sit in this seat. We can't really disclose the full conversation we've heard.
Right.
But at the same time, you can be like, okay, we're really thinking y'all need to have a conversation about what your plans are for the next few years.
Absolutely. And also something
similar.
similar is if you have one big customer or client, right, that you have too much of your resources devoted to them, right? And you're getting maybe 40% of your revenue from one large client. That also puts you at risk.
Exactly. Diversification. Sometimes that you have to have it just because it's your world, but the awareness, the
Mhm.
reserves, the hedging against it. Yeah. Sometimes risk isn't that you can get rid of it. Sometimes the risk is that you're just aware
Mhm.
that it's there and you're playing the short card,
Very, very
Yeah.
true. So,
I mean, yeah, customer concentration or vendor concentration. I mean, we saw that over the last couple of years when all the containers and the pipeline disrupted, when
mhm.
you were buying everything, your resources. I know we saw it in a lot of our restaurants. Did you see it in some of yours? Where
Abs-
just the produce and all coming in, that pipeline slowed down because, and it was like, okay, we just don't, we were buying too much from a single vendor.
Correct.
It was like, oh, well, we need to split our meat order up across a couple different vendors here.
But most business owners see that as more of a problem, right? They want to concentrate with one vendor because they can get discounts, or they think. But that, like you said, it becomes awareness, right, of the risks, the balance, right? What should I do? Should I switch it sometimes? Should I spread it out and not take a discount, maybe, or not get that discount? But like you said, it's the awareness, right?
Yeah. I mean, because we as business owners, we not only have to be aware of the risk that's hitting us, but be aware enough of our pipeline of, okay, yeah, maybe I'm buying all my meat from this vendor and there's benefits for this. But if something happened to that vendor, it's catastrophic for us. And we don't know what's going on upstream or downstream in their pipeline. We only see what they're showing our side.
Exactly.
So, you're right.
Business owners need options, right? They need to be aware of everything and understand the risks that they're taking, right? And then to start to plan. But it can be, I think sometimes it's just scary for them to even think of things like that, or they're just not aware of it, but they don't want to think about getting out until it gets closer. I don't want to think about getting out, but I should also be doing the same exact thing, right?
I mean, I think we all agree. I mean, I was talking to a client this week and we were having this big picture pie conversation and strategy. And, he's 38 years old. And we were talking, and it was like, at your point, your responsibility, and a lot of this is, do you have a will? Do you have the guardianship for
Mhm.
your kids? Do you have the estate plan? You don't have to have the exit plan.
Right.
But it's like where you're at, and at the stage of your life of you're at in your world, do you have this covered? Does your wife know who to call? Does your tax guy know us? Does your office manager, know who your banker is? I mean, have you done that first pass of preparedness? And then, like a lot of us do, it's like, okay, I've done this, and then we're going to set it in a shelf. And a year later or 6 months later, we're going to pull it out. And it's like, okay, what has changed in my world? And am I still comfortable with the risk that we live in? We talk about operational risk. Our key employee leaves, that hurts. That key employee leaves, and we never documented and wrote down exactly how they uploaded some documentation or how they reported information to the state and how they actually did their job. Well, now that's more than hurting, and I'm going to miss them. Now it's like, well, shoot, what did they do all day? And who knows what Johnny did all day in the warehouse? That kind of stuff.
I saw it with a client where we ended up stepping in because the bookkeeper passed away, and she had been sick for quite a while, and they knew that she was sick, but they never wanted to have that conversation with her because it was uncomfortable. And she had been with
Yeah.
the company for 20 years, and no one knew what she did or how she did things. And so they brought in another bookkeeper, and we stepped in to help train and show them and try to uncover what this person had been doing. And it was
Yeah.
because they didn't want to have that difficult conversation. And I can understand that to a point. but still, you need your people to document processes. And with all of the tools that we have these days, it's so much easier to do it. If it's a computer-based job or something like that, there's software that you can record your keystrokes, right? And document things. You can even talk, right? And AI can jot down the processes. So there's less of a barrier for business owners to not do these things. It is much easier. But I think everybody gets so involved in just running the business that they don't take that
Exactly.
step.
Exactly. And that's just it. We live in the weeds. We all do.
Mhm.
We live till, the day to day, the kids got to go have practice, the groceries need to be done, our employees need to be paid, our vendors need money. I mean, we are running to the next task. So stopping and taking this bigger picture back, sit down, is an intentionality. It's just like sitting down once a year and go, let's talk about a budget for next year. What do we plan? But just like a budget, doing it once and never looking at it again, it was like, well, you wasted a half a day or a couple days. If we don't go back and revisit and say, hey, how are we doing? And in this case, we really emphasize the fact that for most of our business owners, your business is the largest valuable transferable asset you will ever have. One. Two, for most of you, coming up with the money to invest in this business was the biggest nut of money you ever have to invest. And if you lose it and this business doesn't work, the percentage of people that try again is so diametrically small. So we want business owners to succeed at this. And that is by asking those questions. Hey, you're my partner. Let's go write a life insurance policy that if something happens, I can buy your wife out. Hey, you're my key employee. Let me sit down and talk to you where I see your future with this organization going.
And that employee
You
will
know,
appreciate it too. That employee will become even more valuable to you once you had that conversation with them, because they'll understand that you really do appreciate them for what they do and what a big piece of the organization. It's really taking the step from being a job, from you thinking of it as me having a job, to having an asset that I need to take care of, right? And look to the
yes.
future with that asset.
And some of these we can't protect enough against. So like we talk about having cash reserves for opportunities, that the silver tsunami, the millions in businesses that are going to change hands in the upcoming years. Now, for all the businesses that are going on the market, that's also the opportunity cost for all of those sitting on the side watching that freeway and parade of businesses going by and going, that looks like the one I want to buy. So there's an entire parade of opportunity about to come through. But the truth is, all these business owners that own these businesses that first say, I'm going to wake up, and I have met with like every business owner we work with. So I have had more conversations in the last couple of weeks with business owners, but literally worked with one I turned 70 next summer, and I think I'm going to retire after that. And it's like, okay, well, what's the plan? And it's like a captive insurance agent, which means that they don't have the ability to sell their business. They don't hand down their book. They don't distribute it. When a captive insurance agent goes away and their name comes off the door, the book of business goes back to parent and gets redivvied up among agents in their territory.
Wow.
But we're just kind of having a conversation, and it's like, well, what's the plan? But I mean, everything from are there projects we need to do at home and get cleaned up off the books before we do this? Are there, what's the timing of this? And then I swear I talked to her 4 days later, and she's talking to me about this advertising plan she's putting in that's got a 2-year ROI on it. And I'm like, but I thought you were retiring next summer. But it comes down to thinking it through. Because like the sign guy that I talked about that did answer the phone last week, and someone's like, hey, we're moving into the area. Would you be interested in selling? Yes, you have clean books. So that's a win on the 2 to 3 year. Because if you're a business owner that's like, I want to run everything through my business, I want to pay no taxes, push it all, push it all, push it all. Great. That's between you and Uncle Sam.
Hmm.
But when we go to the bank and want to borrow money for investments, those books don't make us look all that great. And when
And
someone calls and says, I want
Mhm.
to buy, those books don't make us look all that great for a multiplier, do they?
Exactly. But that's the short term thinking, right, of these business owners that they just want to minimize their taxes, right? So they don't want to do that. They don't want to show a profit. But then they'll come, like you said, to look for a loan, right? Or to somebody wants to buy the business. And we've seen that when we work with business valuation firms, because they appreciate the fact that usually when we give them the financials for these businesses, that they are clean, right? That we have
Yes.
advised the clients to not run everything through the business and muddy the waters, that they should pay the taxes, and that paying the taxes is a sign of success on their business, that the business is doing well. You can always have tax
100%.
strategies, but still take care of it. Make sure that the business financials accurately represent how the business is doing, because then you get that multiplier, right, when it is time to sell.
Because, people come into this, and I mean, everyone that starts it is when I decide to sell, when I decide to sell, when I decide to
Mhm.
sell. Well, one, we've already talked about. One, 3 out of 10 businesses actually sell on the timeline that they wanted, that
Mhm.
they initiated the sale on the timeline they wanted. Those other 7 buyers got pushed to the table because something else happened.
Correct.
Something else happened that brought them to it. Sometimes it is the phone call. Sometimes it is the emergency. Sometimes it's just the fact that what you couldn't prepare for. Hey, we've decided to sell the building that you've rented from us for the last 20 years with your business. So you've got 90 days to be out, 6 months to be out. And you're left sitting there in a doctor's office practice or a facility that you have built your business in for a long time, and you've got to pack it up and find a new place. And that is actually, I've read an article recently that is one of the triggers that is making people to decide, are we really moving to a new building, or is this the time we're just going to call it?
We have a
Because just
local
that
bit. We have a
investment
local business owner
packet.
here, a local restaurant owner on Long Island, and they lease space from Saks Fifth Avenue. And Saks Fifth Avenue just filed for bankruptcy, and now Saks is closing that location that they lease space from. So now they're going to be out. And I bet you they didn't
Yeah.
see that coming necessarily, right? They have a different location, but I wonder what they're going to do. I wonder if this could be the cause that to shut both of them down, because they're going to have to shut one down, see if they keep the other or if they'll look for a second location. But that's a huge investment, right? To pack it all up, like you said, and renovate a new space for, $500,000 to $1 million and then start over again. Do you want to do that? Probably not. But
And
now all of their
if,
employees are out of jobs at this location. And this,
yeah.
they probably didn't see it coming. Right?
Exactly. Because I mean, that's the kind of risk. I mean, hey, money in the bank and reserves. When you're a young guy and I'm in my 30s, climbing that mountain sounds good. When you're over here at 55, 58, and they're like, yeah, we're selling your building, we're taking this, you're going to have to shift. There's a level of, man, I'm tired. I'm not
Mhm.
sure I want to do this. So that's where it's like, okay, well, are our books clean? Can we move? Can we shake? Can we sell? Can we twist? And it's like, how well are we prepared? I am getting ready for this over the past week. One of the statistics I was reading about was talking about, a lot of conversations about handing businesses down to that next legacy. And I'm based in Louisville, and Business First is a magazine, a newsletter, a newspaper we get here. It's across the country in a lot of cities, but Louisville Business First I was reading. But one of the articles I was reading was talking about how one of the largest family owned, think rec center, they're the places you go for your hot tub, your swing
Mhm.
sets, your outdoor grill.
Right.
But this family owned build business was transitioning to the son and daughter. It was an article. But what caught my attention in reading the article was, hey, it was at a family dinner last fall when dad announced his intent to retire come spring. And over the last 6 months, they have transitioned to this business to the son and daughter. But where it struck me was the father in the interview was that no, we'd never really had a hardcore conversation about the plans of this. It was just always the expectation, it was
Hmm.
always just known. And it was kind of like, well, and in this case, it's obviously worked out well. But I can give you another case that I've experienced where that known worked up until dad announced it. And one kid's like, well, I'm not quitting my job to come work for the family business. I
Hmm.
like the career I have. And now you have this entire ownership structure of a much more complicated. So only 30% of businesses survive that second generation, and only 12% survive down to that next. So if you're thinking a family business makes it an easier transition, that's really not the case. That less than 3% of businesses make it to a fourth generation.
You need to talk with
So that's
your
a no.
children if they're interested. So many of them don't want to do it because they've watched the sacrifices that you've made over the years, and maybe they are unwilling to make those same sacrifices.
Yeah, very much so. And then, of course, when we do talk these triggers and someone calls, we got to have conversations about multipliers. For most small businesses, that small business, derivative, that equalizer, it's just going to be a percentage of your revenue. So, I mean, it's not necessarily your bottom line, but it's understanding what is someone buying from you. A client we worked with last year, his bottom line's 200K. Well, if you're going to get bought for 2 times your bottom line, okay, you maybe get an offer for 400,000 or 500,000. That's not a bad offer, but that's 3 years worth of your earnings.
Right.
Is that building you the bridge to that next iteration of your career, your next company, your next retirement, your next phase? Or did you just buy yourself 2 or 3 years out of a job while you need to go find another one?
Exactly.
So
And
timing is
we've
critical.
seen business owners where they think it's because it's their baby, right? So they feel that their baby is worth so much more than what somebody is willing to pay. And they're counting on that bigger baby that they're going to get, and they're not going to get it, and they get very discouraged and disappointed when they get that valuation, like what you just said, the multiplier, that 400 or $500,000 is all that they're going to get, when their expectation, as unreal as it may have been, that they're thinking, well, look, I started this business 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's my whole life, and I've put so much into it. Why isn't somebody valuing it much higher than that?
No, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, I'm a certified exit planner and did not get the certification designation from a driving need to help our clients exit the business. Our driving force has always been working with our clients within their business, making it the most resilient, profitable, strongest thing we have. But that exit planning and that mindset, like you're saying, is understanding, like guys, not every baby's a pretty baby. Not every little league kid goes to NFL.
Right.
I mean, and I don't care how you brush them up and pamper them on the bottom. If they can't come to market and they can't stand across everyone else and shine on their own, well, your baby's going to continue living in your basement.
I appreciate what you said, though, about be working with your business owners to help make their businesses resilient, because that's the biggest thing, right? As they're going through it, they need to be resilient so that they can withstand the stresses, right? They don't need to be fragile. They need to be strong, and they need to understand all of these things that you point out to them, about what to do, things about the, not having one customer, or understanding that having one customer with a lot of your business could be an issue, is making them aware of these things, helping prepare them, making sure that their financials accurately represent the value of the business, making the most, not putting personal expenses through the business. All of these things are what takes them to the next step.
100%. And I mean, you've been doing it for years too. And, tell me you don't see when you are working with business owners and you're out in the community and you're like, yep, you're the one that this is your baby, this is your back pocket, this is your shoot from the hip. How do we feel like it? And you're the one that like, oh yeah, this is a business.
Absolutely.
This is something.
It's something that's valuable, right? And it needs to be treated with the same respect, right, of value. Take good care of it. Be a steward of the business, right, to make sure that then it will last either for the next generation or to a new buyer.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about every single one of us. I mean, Anne's a business owner. I'm a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, if you're listening to this, you're all business owners. But the truth of this, if we're a business owner, none of us woke up as a business owner by accident. Because truthfully, if all we got into this was, I just want to show up, make money, and go home, that is called a job. That is a job.
Mm-hmm.
And that job comes with a W-2 and often less stress, because there's a lot of stressful jobs out there and there's a lot of jobs that require a lot. But business ownership comes with a different level of stress, because business ownership, all roads lead back to that business owner. And yes, you can delegate. We encourage you. We want you to spread out. We want you to bring on the team. We want you to use the education, experience, and expertise of everyone on your leadership team to make these decisions. But we also want you to protect yourself from risk. We want you to build a resilient business, understanding that it works in a framework. It is a 12-month period. Open enrollment is once a year. Estimated taxes are 4 times a year. Payroll every 2 weeks, once a month, every week, whatever it is a cycle. Within that cycle, you deal with the day-to-day.
It's a different mindset.
With that,
it's a completely different mindset than a W-2 job, right?
It is. And as a business owner, we are not only responsible for going into business for ourselves and our family. And yes, we've gone into this with dreams and reasons of what we want for our family. But the minute we took on team members and employees, we took on responsibilities for other people's lives. We're going into a silver tsunami. Thousands and millions of companies are going to change hands. Millions of employees are going to be impacted by this. As a business owner, it behooves you get your business in shape to first benefit yourself and your own family as strong as you can, but also to tee it up for your team. Leave them in a good place. We can't just all walk away and shut our doors.
And you shouldn't want to. You've invested so much and you've built it. You shouldn't want to just walk away and not get anything for it. You should want to get the most that you possibly can after you've invested blood, sweat, and tears in this business.
And if you're listening to this and you think your business is too small, that you don't have something that is an asset, that you don't have something that is transferable, that you don't have something that somebody else will buy, that is a wrong mindset. We work in an industry in accounting firms where people sell books of clients. I have worked with an auto salvage yard that pull apart for historical vehicles they have sold. I mean, for whatever you are passionate about and you have crafted, someone else is interested in this baby. If we give them enough time, give you enough time to find them, you probably have something we can sell and find you a buyer for. You have a good chance. So, we want you to look at the resource. There's something attached to this, but look through it. Where do you have exposure? What are the questions that you may have exposures that you've not even asked yourself about yet? And then if you do see them, ask yourself, where can maybe we close the gap? Do we cross-train our staff? Do we document our process? Do we split our, okay, Ann, you had a great example last week on a payroll account hitting an operating account. That's a business risk. Is our payroll being pulled out of a separate account from an operating account? You want to tell the story of what happened to one of your clients last week?
Yeah, absolutely. A payroll provider was trying to make themselves whole and withdrew $10,000 from my client's bank account. And because they didn't have separate accounts set up, they were able to take it from their main checking account, which had money in it. But $10,000 was a lot of money, and they were surprised. They had no idea this was coming. They woke up in the morning to see this huge withdrawal come out of their account. And it took a lot to
And
get
one
in
of the
touch with the
things,
payroll company to get this resolved. And it took me going to Twitter, to X, to get in touch with the payroll company to get it resolved. But if they didn't have us,
okay, so Anne's out here screaming to the universe to get help. But our recommendation, and generally Anne's is too, hey guys, we want a separate payroll account that we fund so that the payroll companies, the tax groups never have the ability to claw themselves into our main account.
Absolutely.
And had that been the case, they would not have been able to get that funds because the account would have hit a zero position and stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Their operating funds would have been protected and that type of thing. And instead, Anne's screaming from the mountain of Twitter, trying to get money back on behalf of a client.
We recommend the same thing for sales tax too. Open up a separate bank account just for sales tax and just move in the money in there that covers your sales tax payment for the month or the quarter. And again, so that nobody can claw back just in case and that there's no other issues with it. It also helps set up the discipline for the business owner when they're collecting sales tax that it's not their money and that they shouldn't be considering it as part of their operating funds and living off of that. Because we've had situations where it comes time to pay sales tax, they don't have the funds because they've spent it.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, so all of this. So, we hope you've enjoyed this. Check out our resource, but we as an American society are facing a huge transition of business ownership. As business owners, I hope we're taking a step back and we're thinking about how can we improve and buff up our baby before we put it on the market. How do we make our businesses shine and make it the best presented business to bring it on? Just like a housing market, is it a buyer's market, a seller's market? When we put our business on, the timing, it's right, wrong. I mean, there's never a right, but you're trying. But this, there's a lot of changes. If we are a business owner, we want it to look. If we are an investor, if we're an employee interested in business ownership, there's so much opportunities coming in front of us. Look around your community. If you see someone over the age of 55, remember, 10 out of 100 own their own business. So that is a ton of businesses out there that are going to change hands. Opportunities are going to abound. Save your cash. You want opportunity funds available. As a business owner, protect yourself. Come back next time, and we're actually going to talk about some of these operational blind spots and some of what are some of the hidden inefficiencies within your business that can just translate to dollar on the bottom line.
Absolutely.
You got anything to wrap it up, Ann?
Preparation is key, right? Prior planning prevents poor performance. That's the line that we use with a lot of our clients, and we talk to them about that. And listen to your advisors. Find yourself an advisor if you don't have one, because that can make all the difference. Like Sheri said about preparing yourself and the advice that they provide, that's key.
I mean, if we're over 55, guys, let's have a conversation at least. What's the plan? Between 55 and 70, if you could plot out your perfect journey, what is it? And then let's backstop it and prepare that if that road ran into a dead end next week, how much of that could you still pull out? In a perfect world, you got to 70 or whenever your D date is. If the road had to run out tomorrow, how much could you recover? That's really it. We just are trying to make sure that you are ready so that if something does happen, we have you as protected as possible. So, welcome to Our Readiness Lens. We're glad you joined us once again.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining me on the Our Readiness Lens podcast. If you found this episode helpful, connect with me on LinkedIn and follow along on Instagram for more tips and resources. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, be sure to rate the podcast and subscribe so you never miss an upcoming episode. Until next time, keep your numbers clear and your goals in focus.